Feedback is the most important part of the duty. Just the one and then the second one. 98. Ibarra. Loose more. Come in, please, sir. What number is it? 25.
Mark under the chase.
And then? Mind the cage, please. 2, 1.
Mr. Namayu, there is talk of repatriation of the refugees. When do you see this happening, and how do you see it happening?
We will see it happen when once the two governments finalize arrangements for the repatriation of the refugees. That will depend on a couple of things. As you may recollect, in that joint communique that the Indonesian Foreign Minister and I agreed to, it was agreed amongst other things in one of the parts of that communique that firstly that the security of those people that are being repatriated has to be guaranteed first. So we're waiting for preparations to be finalized on the other side as well as on our side. And secondly, and probably more importantly from the point of view of this country, because of the public reaction to this issue, we would like to be assured that when they are repatriated, that their security will be guaranteed on the other side, and that there will be no feeling once they get there that it's likely to drive them back to our side of the border.
So are you waiting for assurances from Indonesia, or have you already received that?
Well, we have received a verbal assurance, but we are still waiting for arrangements to be finalized, and to that extent we are hoping that we will be notified officially. We hope also that even before that, that our officials will sit down together and finalize arrangements so that both governments are clear as to what will take place.
With both governments involved, how does one determine refugee status?
Well, that is one of the questions that we will have to sort out. Those that are genuine political refugees will obviously have to be considered separately from the rest. But the vast majority of these people are not, or do not fall into that category. And it has even been indicated in Jakarta on a couple of times that for those that are likely to be difficult, they themselves are likely to be cautious in wanting them back. So you're really dealing with two groups of people for the most part. Those that are genuine political refugees, and most of those would be confined to Vanimo. Those that have fled from Jayapura and so on. And the vast majority who have crossed from villages just across the border out of fear, and they are located in places inland from Vanimo, right down across to the other side of Western Province.
Who will then determine this refugee status? Will it be the government of Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, or will there be a third organization such as the United Nations High Commission for Refugees called in to help with this determination?
Well, as far as the group in Vanimo is concerned, that's where the biggest concentration of interviews had taken place. That hasn't taken place because of the influx of even greater numbers in most of the other places. So we do have information on a lot of those that are in Vanimo. We did ask in our meeting in Jakarta if the UNHCR could be involved in the repatriation, basically because we felt, and still do, that the presence of a neutral body, and a body particularly that's dealing with specifically with questions of refugees, should be involved. But the Indonesian government felt some reservations about their involvement. So we then put a second proposition to them, which would involve officials of our mission in Jakarta being involved in the repatriation. So at this stage, even though we have gone back to the Indonesian government through the embassy here to ask them to reconsider their decision on the involvement of the UNHCR, they still maintain their position, feel that they have some reservations about their involvement, and therefore to this date they will not be involved. However, they have agreed to a couple of our officials being present with their officials on their side when the refugees start returning.
The border is a real problem to patrol, just in the length and the terrain of it. Do you have any changes in mind?
Well, it's a very difficult terrain, as you know, as you just rightly pointed out. One of the things that we agreed to last year after the incident with the road intrusions into Papua New Guinea was to put additional markers along the border. As a matter of fact, that was agreed to even before that road incident. But nevertheless, I guess the road incident made us even more conscious of the fact that the border is extremely hard to identify, and that we, at this point, when we only have 14 markers right along that border, we really needed to have additional markers to help identify more places along it. So the two governments agreed to expedite that, and last December agreed to have a joint survey done. That was completed, but that was only the first stage. So the second stage is now underway. But in the final analysis, when that's all done, we hope to have at least another 28 markers along the border to help us identify where it is.
How about more border patrols, more men or troops at the border? Are these planned?
We have always had troops along the border patrolling, even though the number of people involved has always been small in numbers. But recently, because of the influx of border of refugees, we've had to, or the police had to send in additional police men to border posts, and they've been there now for some weeks.
Okay.
What is the government's policy on the OPM and their tactics, and how do you keep them from using Papua New Guinea as a sanctuary?
Well, firstly, government policy is quite clear, and has always been a bipartisan one, and that is that the government does not recognize the OPM. And that's been the policy of this government, as in fact been the case of the previous government and governments before that. So it hasn't changed. We have in the agreement, which is under review, as I indicated earlier, a provision that relates specifically to national security, but one aspect of which relates specifically to territory, either PNG territory or, in the case of anti-Papua New Guinea elements, Indonesian territory, not to be provided or used as a sanctuary by any elements such as the OPM. Of course, actually preventing this from happening is an extremely difficult task because, as you pointed out earlier, and I responded, the terrain along the border is extremely difficult, and it's very hard to keep track of the movement of people crossing the border at any time, at any given place. So it is conceivable that movements do take place across the border about which we are never, we've never, made aware, or about which we will never find out. So it's the only thing that has assisted us in the past and will continue to do so in the future is that where there are border posts, where we have people on border posts, or there are officials along the border, then it would that would assist us in identifying crosses, and also help us to identify whether crosses are traditional crosses, in which case they don't have to have normal immigration documents, or whether they are non-traditional crosses, in which case we would then have to find out whether they've got valid passports and that sort of thing. But keeping track of the OPM is a very difficult task, and by the very nature of their activities, they operate, in such a way that they try to avoid being caught by by authorities, either on their side or on our side. So it's one of those difficulties that continues to exist.
Looking at the rate of negotiations between you and Indonesia, do you have any kind of date in mind when repatriation of the refugees could begin? I've heard estimates next week, next month, next year.
Well, at this point, we do have a suggested program, but I'm not sure that I can put a date to it until we've had some consultations with the Indonesian government. You know, it has to be a mutually agreed program. But it could be next month. I couldn't really say because it depends, as I said earlier, on those things being done first: preparations, security, and having people there to receive them or to help on our side with the repatriation program.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We can get you to do what you feel comfortable, but maybe just having a bit of a chat around.
Yes, sure. Talk to Jeffrey.
Yeah.
I talked to the director of the museum.
Okay.
Well, a real aspect of Papua New Guinea culture, it's got it right there. We had somebody up on the roof there dancing and jumping and screaming a little while ago. See one of your...
I don't know. Security.
Oh, security.
Well, one of the security.
What's the matter?
Sending John stuff in there.
At 1 o'clock you are open.
We open at 1 o'clock, but we set it up the barbecue. We provide the barbecue lunch for anybody interested in buying lunch to make extra dough. And
We just following him.
So you go back this afternoon?
Yeah.
What are your impressions of our country?
I quite like it.
Yeah?
We saw so much that it's hard to compare, you know, all the
Sure.
different places
Right.
in such a short time.
Right.
It's very expensive for us to stay here. I mean, I can see that
It
it's
is
not.
a very expensive country.
Yeah, exactly.
Vista.
And so, yes, I'd like to return and visit and spend more time moving around. Okay.
Right.
Rolling for noddies.
Oh, yes. Somebody should sit over there and help me out. I probably will. Talk to me.
Why? Boring things to say. Like most interview subjects. Boring. Boring. Sit here and see who can do better noddies.
Yeah. No shit. Sit here and see who cracks up first.
That's right. Man with the cakes.
See you,
You're supposed to be looking at me. Not me looking at you. Okay, Margaret, speak.
Okay. Can you tell us, Prime Minister, what the official opening will be like in August of this year?
The official opening will consist of heads of governments have been invited, the speakers of some speakers, particularly from the Pacific and Asia region. I don't know whether the invitation has been extended to the Speaker of House of Commons, but certainly Australian speaker would be here, and quite a number of people who are involved in, say, this type of parliamentary system, Pacific Asia, and I suppose there are some European countries, countries in where they have the Commonwealth parliamentary system, the Westminster type of system. People have been invited, and of course at the same time we will have the regional prime ministers who will have a meeting, one-day meeting of Chogram. This is a regional Commonwealth meeting. We thought, seeing that everybody would be here, would like to coincide the meeting with the official opening of Parliament.
What does this new Parliament House mean to you personally?
Well, to me personally, it would be a very proud moment because laying of the foundation stone at the eve of independence in 1975 by Prince of Wales. We're going towards the 10th decade of independence, and with the 10th anniversary celebrations coming up, it'll be 12 months short of opening of that parliament, and it's a great pride. For me personally, it's something that I have initiated with the former speaker, who is now the Governor General, and I feel that it'll be a very proud moment for me as an individual, and also for my country.
What do you think the new Parliament House then means to the people of Papua New Guinea?
I think it will prove that we people some years ago have said that, you know, we don't know what Papua New Guinea is going to end up. There were people who are still here who thought, you know, Papua New Guinea would not follow the pattern of a democracy that has existed in some places. And I just want this moment to prove them wrong, that Papua New Guinea has tried democracy. It has worked. We have a change of government in 1980. It was effective change of government within the floor of Parliament, even though we didn't go to the elections. But it is something that we have proven in this region, that democracy can survive. And with the parliament building as such, it's something that it's worthwhile for our future generation to think about when they think of it. When our ancestors started off, we thought, you know, from the Stone Age to this type of democracy, it's something quite unique.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can we just get you?
Parliamentary committee will be reporting to the House. I think it will be supported by the House. I don't want to preempt that, but I'm sure that this is what's going to happen. And of course, there will be quite a number of legislations, which I think we've got about more than 10. Legislations. It'll be a short meeting. The short way here. Most of them are very impressed. I hope that we can maintain it and keep it that way for long.
It's such an impressive building that it does kind of give you that sense of awe and respect.
Yes.
And
I think we find that, you know, visitors come in every day. Everyone wants to get in and see.
So
And it's going to be exciting.
There's provisions then for a big public gallery.
Yes.
Is that intended
public
on
gallery
purpose?
is about 400. About 400, yes. Oh yeah, that's for the purpose, because in the last all House of Assembly, Legislative Council, then became Parliament. It's very, we can only take 30, 40, or almost 100.
Get up the stairs. Okay.
Tape is rolling and speed.
The problem is the border. For 800 kilometers south of this point, Papua New Guinea and Indonesia share a common border, most of it unmarked and unpatrolled.
And once again for me, please.
Yep. The problem is the border. For 800 kilometers south of this point, Papua New Guinea and Indonesia share a common border, most of it unmarked and unpatrolled.
God's worst idiot.
close.
Down a bit, work. stay ducked down. It's,
Hi.
Do the shot straight up the stairs, the contract